Hello and welcome to Midnight's Lair. My name is Eric, otherwise known as Midnight. And if you're a new GM, new to the craft, or one who's been around the block a few times, this episode's for you. Today in this episode, we're going to be speaking about one of the most important yet overlooked parts of starting your campaign: assembling your adventuring party, creating the characters. Also, we're going to speak about how to set up the first meeting so that your first episode will go off a little bit more smoothly. Now, whether you're playing a superhero game like Villains and Vigilantes, or a fantasy game like Shadowdark or D&D, or even a science fiction game like Traveller, or anything in between, setting up the adventuring party is a crucial step if you want your campaign to be memorable and enjoyable for your players and yourself. So if this sounds interesting to you, stay tuned. I'll be right back. Why does the party setup matter? Well, it matters because the party, the adventuring characters in the party, are the lens through which your players experience the world. Okay, everything is going to theoretically come through the lens of the player characters and their experiences. It's not a story in the sense that it's being read to you and you're absorbing it as it comes. The story and the situations are tailored around your character or your fellow players' characters. So they form and shape your experience as much as the simple narration of the GM does. Now, a strong party dynamic can inspire cohesion and emotional investment and can make the narrative much stronger if the party is properly considered upon starting. And if you don't have a strong party setup of some sort, that can lead to chaos, imbalance, boredom, and eventually just failure of the campaign. If the characters don't gel, the characters are eventually not going to work together, and then that'll lead to the dissolution. And you'll have to either start over with new characters or something. But it's important that you get a functional group of characters together, because you can't have a party of all loners. That doesn't generally work. I mean, I guess it could be made to work, but not generally. And you're not just rolling up, powers or people with powers here. You're rolling up people who are willing to go above and beyond what the average person does. They're not willing to just stay behind on the farm and do what their dad did and hopefully pass the farm down to their son. They're people who are willing to go the step beyond what the average person is going to do to achieve their aims and their goals. No matter what those are. They could be, just making money. They could be giving themselves fame and fortune. Or they could be saving the world. Who knows? But without making those characters properly and integrating them, you're going to have a problem, because it's entirely possible you could make a character or a group of characters who have no reason to go out adventuring. And then how much fun would that be? We've had instances where characters are, they're trying to be loners and edgy and I don't work with other people and stuff like that. And the problem with that is then they have no reason to work with other people. So why are they in the group? Why are they playing? The whole idea behind this is you're a group of people gathering to play a game and you want to play characters who are going to work together. So making loners, they can't be true loners. They can't really be true loners. And there's very few examples of true loners, even in the comic books or in various books, because unless the book is really all about them and they have no other people in their lives and there's no one they work with, they're not loners. If that's the case, then they are loners. But if there's anyone who helps them out, anyone who comes along for the ride, anyone they care about, they're not loners. Loners are very unusual people. and they're not heroic generally. Know your party, know your role. Putting together an adventuring group for any role-playing game, be it fantasy, adventuring party, or superhero team in a game like V&V, or a horror investigator group in Call of Cthulhu, can be a lot of fun. It can be very challenging, but it can be a lot of fun. You'll hear a lot of talk online about making sure that you have all the roles, covered for balance, and that, there's no gaps in the party. I don't think that's so important. What I do think is important is that each player plays the character that they want to play. Because if they're playing the character they want to play, and they're happy with their character, they're going to have fun. And if they have fun, you're winning the game. Now, different genres shape different party expectations. And understanding these expectations can help you support your players while still leaning into what makes each genre unique. Now, superhero games like V&V, powers are rarely balanced, but the personalities are the spice. Roles aren't rigid like fantasy tank healer setups. Instead, they're thematic archetypes that define narrative and mechanical contributions. Here are some classic superhero archetypes that help you identify, your party roles. You've got your brick, slower hand-to-hand fighter who relies on strength and toughness. Think the Hulk, Colossus, or Solomon Grundy. Energy projector, controller. Primarily a ranged combatant, not always energy-based, despite what the title says. And you think Starfire, Cyclops, Green Lantern. Then you've got your gadgeteer. Now, the gadgeteer is a tech genius whose abilities stem from specialized devices. Think Brainiac 5 with his force field belt, or Forge with his ability to make any kind of machine. The next one would be martial artist. Martial artists are agile, close combat fighters who rely on their precision and their skill to fight. Think Daredevil, Batman, or even Wolverine. Then you have your mentalists, using mental abilities like telepathy, illusions, telekinesis, or psychic attacks. Think Professor X, Jean Grey, that type of character. Metamorphs. Metamorphs, they adapt by changing their size and shape to what's necessary at that time, and sometimes even chemical composition. Think Mystique, Plastic Man, or Metamorpho. Mystics. They draw on the arcane powers of the universe and magical energies to accomplish the effects that they want to accomplish. They enforce their will on the cosmos. Think Doctor Strange and Doctor Fate. You've got your patriots, embodiments of their national symbolism and pride. Often they lead by example. They tend to fall into the leadership categories. Think Superman, Thor, Captain Marvel, or Shazam. Then you have your power armor heroes. High-tech warriors who are encased in advanced armor that is in itself a gadget. So it's a kind of gadgeteer. Think Iron Man or Cyborg. They often have the ability to adapt the armor to different functions and situations given enough time. Another one is speedsters. Rely on velocity and for offense and defense, and their mobility is king if they have to be mobile. Think the Flash and Quicksilver. Then you have your weapons masters, experts in a signature weapon or a combat style. You can think a Green Arrow, swordsman from Marvel, or even Bullseye. Think about what archetypes are represented and which ones aren't in your group. A good party doesn't need to cover every archetype, but a variety creates dramatic tension and problem-solving options. Now, in fantasy, this is where you see a clear party role expectations. they've been around so long, they're almost hard-coded in the hobby. Here's some classic roles. You've got your fighter tank, the frontline combatant who can take hits and protect others. Your cleric healer offers healing and support magics, often the party's moral compass. You know, they're the ones that keep the players from becoming complete and utter psychopaths, hopefully. Wizard or mage. They tend to be glass cannons, spellcasters. They got a high damage potential, but really at low levels, they can be knocked out very quickly. But some of their utility spells are invaluable. You've got your rogue and your thief. Skilled stealth types. They're good at traps, locks, infiltration, social situations. You've got your ranger and scout. They're trackers, survivalists, long-range damage dealers. They tend to be more bow-oriented, although some are, hand-to-handers, but they tend to specialize in bows and such. Your paladin or champion combines martial skill and divine magic, which can be handy. It's sort of a 2-for-1 combo. Idealist thinking, unwavering usually, but not necessarily. A lot of people think their moral compass is extremely rigid, but they don't have to be played that way. Bard or face character. Support through charm, magic, storytelling, music. They tend to be jacks of all trades with a flair for the dramatic. These roles help ensure versatility during exploration and combat. If you're missing one, it's not a big deal. Adjust your world or your encounters to suit it. Now, sci-fi. Sci-fi. Let me think. Sci-fi roles often stem from mission-oriented team structures. Archetypes could include pilot, navigator, gets the crew through space, evades danger, pulls off stunts. Your engineer or tech specialist. They fix system, hack computers, modify gear. Medic or scientists, they offer medical or research expertise, solving biological or chemical issues or mechanical issues, although the engineer can sometimes assist in that. Soldiers, enforcers, well, they're pretty much what it says on the package, right? They handle direct combat and security. Diplomats or negotiators manage alliances, espionage, talking the team out of trouble or getting the team in trouble. Scouts and recon, they excel in infiltration, perception, operating behind enemy lines, things like that. Sci-fi teams thrive on specialization. Making missions and planning teamwork is essential with sci-fi. You really gotta, because they're more compartmentalized than a lot of games. You have to basically know how each player is going to interact within a specific scenario. So there's that. Then let's see, we have, let's say, mystery and horror. It's less about combat and more about psychological and investigative strengths. Useful archetypes could be detectives or investigators, leading everyone to the clues, analyzing them, getting deductions. Academics or occultists, providing lore that might be pertinent to the situation, analysis and theories. A skeptic or a realist, to challenge what's going on and make sure that not everyone's going off on wild goose chases and it's, trying to figure out if this could have a logical, solution or cause. Believers or mediums, open to the supernatural, able to communicate with the unknown and maybe get resources or information from beyond the veil. Protectors or survivors. They have grit and determination. They can pull the rest of the party through physical dangers and even psychological dangers sometimes that help them get through. They'll have just the right thing for the situation at hand. Or the outsider wild card, which, brings unconventional thinking to the situation and possibly has a shady past and connections that can lead to clues or solutions. This genre's emotional tension and atmosphere often matter more than the perfect balance of skills. Now, in the Vigilant universe, an example team would be, for example, from characters put together from past campaigns, would be Iron Gauntlet. He's a tech businessman, armored battlesuit, heightened strength, advanced sensor suite, and flight. Mega Man. I won't say a naive, but an innocent character to an extent. He's a comic book fan. He's super strong and vulnerable, flying powerhouse, a real, paragon. Idolizes characters like Superman and such. The Magus, an an archaeologist, spellcaster, and arcane guide, supernatural protector and troubleshooter. He's been digging into the past, and he knows all the hidden secrets from history, old magics. And then Glacier is a rookie character with something to prove. Controls environmental cold and ice powers. You see, those 4 characters could form an interesting team. So you can see how team composition can make a big difference. If you put together the right team, you're almost guaranteed to have a good time. A note on role balance and old school builds. What is Session Zero? You hear a lot about it online. Session Zero. Well, essentially, it's a session that's held before actual play starts. It's where you discuss the tone of the game with the GM and the themes that he's going to, use or pushing towards, and to help the GM refine those so that they agree with what the player's expectations are. And also where you discuss any safety tools you may be using and try to establish maybe some character connections. And also a place where you can collaboratively, tough word, determine what roles might be necessary and who's going to cover what role and what characters they could build within certain roles. And it helps build the party so that it clicks mechanically and narratively. Now, it also helps you align the expectations, especially in groups where ages could be disparate. If you get younger players, older players, or more experienced players and players who haven't played much, it'll help them come together and realize that it's not so scary, and that the older players can share the benefit of their knowledge with the younger players, and the younger players can give new approaches and new ideas to the older players. It can work rather well if properly done. Now, what if there is no Session Zero? Because it's very common with older gamers that they might build characters alone in isolation with minimal party synergy in mind. But that's okay. But the GM may need to adjust. Now, you got to give them an in-universe reason to collaborate quickly. A shared danger, blackmail, legacy, something to pull them together initially. You can drop in some complementary NPCs that they both might know to patch in, or other characters that might be able to fill a supplementary role, like your Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lanes, Lucius Fox type characters, where 2 of them may know the same person, or they can fill a role that's not already there. For example, in superhero games, there's often not a healer character. It's not a trope that's there very much. But you could have a doctor, Leslie Tompkins from Batman, who is used to dealing with superhero injuries and knows to keep her mouth quiet and do them off the books and kind of thing. You need to reshape the encounters that they might face if they do this in isolation to suit the strengths that they do have, rather than the ones you wanted them to have or expected them to have. You're not punishing them for their creative process. You're building the world around their choices. Here are some smart tips for building a better party. Give them some shared stakes. Try to figure out what their shared stakes are. For example, tie them together with something personal or story-based. An example would be, you were all present during the Great Blackout in Port Dominion, the one the papers are calling the Darkening. Something changed in you that day, changed in all of you, your entire group. And you've got to find out what that was and why you feel so different now. Another thing you can do is try to get some of the contrasting archetypes and give them complementary goals. You know, the diverse personalities and having a shared purpose, or at least close to a shared purpose. For example, Thud the Fighter, Barbarian. His whole village was razed to the ground by the evil wizard Montel, who held the amulet of Raban and used the amulet of Raban to raze the village to the ground, which killed scores and scores of villagers, including his family. He swore he would find this evil wizard Montel and kill him and crush the amulet of Raban. And then there's, you know, Sly, the thief. He's hiding this Raban guy, you know. And the Raban and Montel, yeah, Montel's got the amulet of Raban, and I've heard it's very, very expensive and very, very powerful. And if I could just put my hands on it, I think I would know someone I could sell it to. I gotta find a way to get my hands on that. Or, you know, there's the great wizard Boxus, who has heard of Montel. And Boxus is like, I would dearly love to get my hands on the amulet so that I could examine it and plumb its depths and its mysteries, so that I could create one myself that would respond to my will and my will alone. And perhaps even I could find his spell books, and I could, you know, find out how he made it, and then I could eliminate him, and I would be the most powerful spellcaster in the area. You know, different characters, different outlooks, different personalities, kind of all working towards the same goal. Now, mind you, once they get a hold of Montel and the amulet of Raban, all hell's going to break loose, possibly between them. But that's for later in the game, isn't it? Another thing you can do is to spotlight their roles. For example, one character is going to be more of a leader type. He's going to be the one who's going to want to tell everyone what to do, or recommend, okay, you go over here, you take the high ground there, watch the civilians, you do this, you do that. That's normal, especially in a superhero type game. Also in a fantasy game, and there's no real genre that doesn't have a leader type. Watch for that player and, you know, arrange for things and give him things that can enhance that. Now, it's true the person you think is the leader may not end up being the leader in the end. He might end up being one of the other roles, but these roles are fluid. Also, find out who the wild card is. Who's the character who's likely to go left on a moment's notice? You know, do the unexpected. And watch for him and give him opportunities to do unexpected things. You know, try to build these into your scenario. You know this is in your party. You know, if you've got a wild card in the party, you're going to have to cater to him. So be aware of it. Watch them as they're building characters and see where these spotlight roles are coming up. Another one is the heart of the team. There's often a character who's going to, you know, say, come on, guys, we can beat them. We don't give up now. We're so close. That type of character. You know, watch for him. And give him an opportunity to shine too when the time comes. But you have to identify who that is first. And then there's the comic relief, you know. The guy who's always cutting wise and making jokes and quips and insulting the villain or insulting his teammates or, you know, poking fun at them. And give him opportunities to do that. You know, but you got to find out, oh, this character looks like this is going to be the one. Maybe there won't be one, but maybe there will. And then, of course, there'll probably be the enigma character. The one who's, you know, dark and shadowy and no one knows about his background or no one knows what his source of his powers are, or he's kind of scary. I don't know about him, but, you know, he's awfully useful. Give him a chance to shine in that role. But you're going to have to identify these roles up front so that you know to write your adventures to give them these opportunities to take these spotlights. Now, another thing you can do is anchor the characters to the setting. Each character should have a bond with a district in the city, or a faction, or an NPC. For example, in Port Dominion, your character, your sister might work for Aegis Aeronautics. You hate that. You're convinced that they're making black ops aircraft, and they're the people who make the black helicopters for the government, and you know it's not good. And they're the ones building these stealth aircraft that go into foreign countries and cause problems. And you gotta stop Aegis, but you gotta protect your sister at the same time, because you know you gotta make sure that she's gonna be safe. So you're gonna have to give that anchor into the setting. Another thing you can do is run a strong session 0 if you can. Encourage the collaboration, create interpersonal connections before play even starts. This is a good place to do it, but not everyone does it. Now, one of the big tricks is, how do you introduce the party in the very first session? There's a couple options, a couple ways to do this. Option 1, the cold open, or in media res. You're already in costume, there's smoke, the warehouse is burning. What do you do? Now, why that works, starting in media res lets you throw your players straight into the action before they've got a chance to overthink or disengage. It grabs their attention and sets the tone and forces cooperation organically. You can use a flashback afterwards to explain how they got there, or you can sprinkle it into the narrative as you go along. Now, GM tip, choose an action scene that lets each character show off their unique key trait during that in the opening scene. Don't worry if they haven't met yet. Let the crisis bring them together naturally. Now, another option is the casual collision. You know, you're all in the same diner when the car bomb goes off. What do? They act together out of instinct, not obligation. Now, these are all quick openers, mind you. But they're enough to get you going in a direction. Option 3, the web of connections. You arrested her once. You trained with him. You both survived that demon cult raid. Organic connections that blossom into teamwork. You know, give them little ties like that. This is best done during a session 0, or between two players who've communicated during character creation, if they've done this independently. Sometimes players will communicate like that. Option 4, the mission briefing. You've all been summoned by Baron Lacroix. He doesn't explain why. Yet. It's simple, structured, effective. Everyone starts on the same page. It's a commonly used trope. And, you know, bonus, it's sort of a variant on in media res. You wake up in chains. You don't remember how you got there, but there's a monster in the room right next to you. Immediate tension and cooperation. Works well for mystery-based games especially. Fantasy too. Okay, here's some common pitfalls you have to watch out for during character creation and group formation. Everyone's a loner with no party ties. So I spoke about that before. A group full of loners is never going to hold together. Even in a group with a loner can work, but if he's a diehard loner and refuses to work with the party, that's just not going to work. Be very careful with loner characters. Even Batman, who constantly complains that he's a loner and he works alone and doesn't work with anyone else. He's got 4 zillion allies and friends and family. He's not a true loner. Even Wolverine, I'm a loner, I'm a terrible person, yada yada. Kidding, he's got a heart of gold and he helps people out all the time and he works with his team. Yeah, he's got times when he doesn't, but he's not opposed to working with the team. He'll make life unpleasant for them while he's doing it, but he works with the team. Or everyone in the team wants to lead. Now, you can have a group full of prima donnas. It happens. Where everyone wants to be the leader and thinks they should be the leader. To an extent, you can let them hash it out amongst themselves, but you can't let it get to proportions where there's recriminations between players. You can have characters that dislike each other, even hate each other, as long as they're still willing to work with each other. On the off chance one character hates another character so much that they leave the team, you can then perhaps talk to the player about making a villain out of that character, and they can reintroduce a new character. That's an interesting possibility. Another one is clashing tones. You know, you've got Goofy Goblin and Grimdark Assassin and the Lawful Good Paladin. Those just will not gel together well. And you've got to try and guide the players in the right direction if they can. Try and keep the core of their concepts intact, but try not to let them go to the unpleasant extremities of them. You know, don't let them go to the extremes. Rein them in so that they'll form a cohesive whole. Because you can have a goofy-ish character. For example, Plastic Man. Very goofy. Works well on a team. The characters sort of dislike him at times a lot, but they respect him because he's smart, he's lucky, and he's very, very useful. So they put up with his goofiness. Grimdark Assassin. Everyone complains about the Bat, you know, that he's so negative and dour and he keeps to himself and he thinks he's better than everyone else. Yeah, but they still work with him because he's useful and he's not as bad as they say he is. Otherwise, they really wouldn't have him around. And the Lawful Good Paladin. Well, there's Superman in a nutshell, isn't it? You know? But that can be an important part of the team. It can be the heart of the team. It can be the leader of the team. It can be anything. As long as they know when to tone it back and when to bring it forward. So you're going to have to guide the players through these and try and take the rougher edges off them. Don't let them play their characters. Let them play their roles that they've chosen. But try to moderate them. And this is where a session 0 can come in very useful because it can set the tone. So I would recommend, if you've got players who are tendency to make these wild characters or divergent characters or really off-the-wall characters, maybe bring them together and work that out in a session 0. That's a really good use for one. Or they have no in-world reason to stay together past session 1. That can happen. Sometimes that's the GM's job, is to manufacture that reason in a way. And it can be difficult. It can be difficult. It's better to try and think of that ahead of time. Make that a preconceit. Yeah, that's it. Preconceit before even creating characters. When you send out the information to the players, say you're all going to be contacted by XYZ organization and they want you to work with them as troubleshooters or something to that nature. The wizard Montel has found out that there's a group of adventurers that are seeking to take him out, and he doesn't know why. All he did was kill a group of barbarians. He went out and killed this barbarian tribe that was raiding all the local villages and protected the other villages from these barbarians. But now apparently the one of the barbarians survived, and he's got companions and they're after him, and he wants you to help defend him. Go find them and eliminate them. Yeah, see, everything can tie together. You got to work on that. It's a GM's job to try and give them the in-world reason, and to do it up front before they make characters. If you can give them that nugget ahead of time, that's the best time to do it. Your party is the heart of your game. Assemble them with care and intention. Whether they're strangers in a riot or colleagues on a mission, make sure they have a reason to be a party, not just a collection of stats. If you like this episode, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, or drop a comment with the best or worst party you've ever played in. And if you need help building a perfect team, remember, the Lair is always open. Well, with that, we'll call this one done, folks, and we'll see you next time.